Sorry for the delay, but I just really needed to take a break. Reliving that encounter always leaves me feeling fragile and emotionally vulnerable. Thanks to those of you who waited and came back. Despite the fact that the bar had just closed minutes earlier and I had seen at least 50 people exit, the streets were vacant. I began running in the direction of my apartment. My heels were slowing me down, so I stumbled out of them, almost falling to the concrete. They had been my favorite pair, but I left them without a second thought right there in the middle of the sidewalk. I was able to run a little faster now that the heels were gone. I made a sharp left at the next corner and glimpsed out of the corner of my eye that one of the men was right on my tail. I quickened my pace and clumsily tried to locate my keys somewhere in the bottom of my purse. Should I attempt to call Kate so she could unlock the lobby door and let me in? I thought to myself. I didn't believe I would have enough time to slide my key into the lock before they snatched me up. My 4 years of running track in high school had not prepared me for this. I wrestled my phone out of my jacket pocket and dashed across the desolate street. Were they still behind me? I wondered. Maybe they had only been trying to scare me. Could it be possible that they ended the chase a block back? I could only hope. The sound of heavy breathing and boots stomping on the pavement somewhere in the distance behind me told me that I was very well still living in my nightmare. I could only make out the sounds of one pursuer on my trail. Maybe the other had given up. I called Kate's number and it went straight to voicemail.
You have reached the
Damn
voicemail
it.
box
I
of...
recalled telling her not to wait up for me, so she was probably in bed already. I decided to leave a message in case I didn't make
At
it
the
out of this
tone,
situation
please record
alive.
your voice message.
Kate, it's me. I'm being followed. It's some creeps from the bar. I managed to spit out before I ran completely out of breath. My heart was pounding so hard in my chest, I thought I might faint. As I turned the last corner onto Main Street, the full moon gleamed onto my apartment building. I increased my speed. My phone dropped from my hand and I could hear the screen shatter, but I didn't dare turn around. I got my key ready, jabbed it into the lock, and bolted inside, yanking the massive lobby door closed behind me as quickly as I could in my weakened state. I stopped momentarily to catch my breath, resting on the stairs. I felt like I had just run a marathon. Moments passed and I saw nor heard anything. Could I have imagined it all? Was I really followed? My gaze was fixed on the glass door. I cautiously took a step toward the door. It was one of the men from the bar. This was the first close-up I had gotten of him all night. He should have been drenched in sweat and hair disheveled. Sweaty and disheveled were definitely two words that describe my condition at the present moment. He was very close behind me the entire time, so why did he look so pristine? His eyes glowed in the moonlight. I backed up slowly, turned, and ran upstairs to my apartment. As soon as I entered, I phoned the police. They sent out an officer to take my statement and check the premises, but by the time they arrived, the man was gone. My phone wasn't recovered either, so that meant that the man stole it, and now he had all of my information. I gave them a description of both of the men and explained how I had been with Lucas all night, and then he just vanished. I informed them that I thought those men had done something to him and taken his phone. The police told me they would file my report, put out a bolo for Lucas, and check the surveillance video from the bar in the morning when they reopened. I thanked them and they departed. Kate had woken up during my frantic call to 911. She felt extremely guilty for not waiting up for me like she usually did. "You could have been killed," she said, noticeably upset. "Yeah," I replied, still in shock. A month later, I was still petrified to go to school each day. I didn't know if the creepers might show up there looking for me. I had purchased a new phone and called Lucas every single day. At first, his phone would just ring and ring. Now it was going straight to voicemail. My parents were worried to death when I notified them of the ordeal. My mother begged me to come home until they found the men, but I assured her I would be fine. That didn't stop her from calling to check on me 10 times a day. One day, Kate and I met up for lunch after class, and she told me that she had heard Lucas dropped out. I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it. I knew something else was going on. Kate reminded me that her birthday was that weekend, and she wanted a group of us to go out to her favorite restaurant for dinner. I hadn't been out after dark since the attack a month earlier, but I told her I would go. I knew how much it meant to her for me to be there. We were best friends. When I had called to check in with the police a week ago, they broke the news to me that the men still hadn't been found. The surveillance video had been examined, but the images were too grainy to make out much. They had also tried to question the waitress from the bar that night, who had tried to warn me. Apparently, there was no one who worked at the bar matching her description, so they had no idea where to find her. Now, Lucas had supposedly dropped out of school. But was there any proof that it was actually him who had signed the paperwork? As far as I was concerned, he was still missing. Was it just me, or is none of that suspicious at all? On Kate's birthday, I headed over to the library before dinner to work on a paper for biology class. Although it was early and a Saturday, the library was fairly empty. As I entered, I greeted the librarian with a smile and a wave, then walked to the far wall in the back to where the computers were located. After arranging my backpack on the floor next to my chair, I pulled out my pen and notebook. As I began to search for information, I immediately felt a creepy feeling, like I was being watched. My eyes scanned the library for the culprit, but couldn't pinpoint them. I continued with my research, but got distracted by a constant sniffling sound. It reminded me of someone who had a cold and their nose wouldn't stop running. I glanced around the library, but noticed no one except the librarian standing sternly behind her desk. I focused back on my paper and started to type it up. The sound of the library door closing noisily with a bang grabbed my attention, and I peeked at the time on my cell. Realizing that I had lost track of time, I started to gather my belongings and proceeded to the exit. The library was entirely unoccupied besides me and the librarian. The mood was chilling as I departed the main area of the library. It was a lot cooler in the hallway leading outside, and for some reason it was dark. Someone had turned off all of the lights. I paused when I reached the door leading to outside. My breath caught in my throat. It was pitch black, besides the faint glow coming from a few streetlights. A minute later, the librarian approached me and said that it was time for her to close the library, and she would have to lock all the doors. I begged her to let me stay inside until my ride came to pick me up. She rejected my request, so I marched angrily through the exit doors. When I stepped outside, the crisp night air brushed against my exposed skin. It had been warmer during the day, but once night fell, it had become cool and breezy. I hadn't brought a jacket with me because I wasn't expecting to be out this late. Like I said, since the ordeal, I hadn't been coming out after dark. I pulled out my cell phone to call Kate. She picked up on the second ring. "Hello? Kate, it's me." She cut me off. "Hey, where are you? I'm heading to the restaurant for dinner now," she told me. "I'm at the library. Can you come pick me up? I missed the last bus, and I really don't want to walk home in the dark," I begged. "Sure, I'll turn around now, but it's going to take me at least 15 minutes to get there," she informed me. "Thanks," I said with a sigh of relief. "Please hurry," I added before hanging up. I sat down on the top set of stairs and shivered. The full moon beamed, lighting up the night sky. I could hear sounds in the distance, snarling, probably just some stray dog. While pacing back and forth waiting for Kate, I caught sight of something hiding behind a dumpster in the alley. My heart sped up rapidly. Sweat began gliding down my skin even with the cool breeze blowing. I tried to reassure myself that it was just some homeless person searching for a temporary home for the evening. It moved abruptly, and I could vaguely make out the shape of an animal with dark, mangy fur. Realizing there was nothing to get worked up about, I began to calm myself down. Its eyes glowed in the darkness. They were green, like it possessed some sort of night vision. After the last situation I got caught up in, I had been carrying around pepper spray, a taser, and a pocket knife. My dad bought me these items and insisted I keep them with me at all times. I didn't argue. I reached into my purse and pulled out my taser, preparing myself in case the animal decided to attack. I swiftly checked my phone for the time and thought to myself that Kate should be pulling up in several minutes. When I looked back up, the animal was gone. I glanced around nervously, not locating it anywhere. Then suddenly, 4 shadows emerged from the alley. One of them was the animal that had been hiding behind the dumpster. They began to howl and growl very loudly. From the distance I was seeing them at, they appeared to be big dogs. Maybe wolves? Or foxes? I don't really know. The only dog I'm familiar with is my beloved Chihuahua Coco. Maybe they had picked up on her scent and that's why they were harassing me. Instantly I panicked, remembering the article I had read on the front page of the newspaper the day before. Wolf attacks around town. That was the headline. Even with my taser, I could only fight off 1, maybe 2 of them if they decided to pounce. But they just continued to prowl around the alley. I called Kate again, but she didn't answer. Suddenly, the one with black and white fur lunged forward, leaping toward me at rapid speed. An ear-piercing scream escaped my lips, but ceased immediately once I was tackled. I lifted my taser, hoping to temporarily paralyze it, but was stunned when nothing happened. The taser had absolutely zero effect on it. Now I know I watched a video on YouTube where someone fought off a dog with a taser, so why didn't it seem to be working for me? Maybe I'm just naive. It was YouTube after all. I tried again, but the only effect it seemed to have was pissing the animal off. I screeched in pain as its razor-sharp fangs pierced the skin of my arm. The bloodthirsty beast had pinned me down, its claws digging deeply into my chest, causing an immense amount of pain. My only chance at escape would be when Kate arrived, or so I thought. The animal backed off for only a second, which was all I needed. I sprang to my feet and sprinted across the street and into the woods. The sound of crunching leaves, snapping twigs, and barking and growling told me that the 4 of them were close behind me. I peeked over my shoulder to verify that I was being followed. I'm deep in the woods now, and it was too dark to see them, but through the trees I could faintly see headlights coming down the street. Subscribe for a new story Mondays, Wednesdays, and don't forget Saturdays. See you next time on
Nina's Nightmares.
Really? You're supposed to click the like button, not me. Ugh.